a billionaire CEO, ready to burn his empire for the forbidden love with a black woman. It happened in one reckless heartbeat. The music, the laughter, the city lights all disappeared when Elias Vance grabbed Nia Carter's wrist outside the ballroom doors. She turned, eyes wide. "Someone could see us." "I don't care." His voice broke, rough with something that sounded like fear. "I've spent years pretending you don't matter. I'm done pretending." He kissed her before she could breathe. Not gentle, not careful. A kiss that tasted like defiance and danger. Crystals shattered somewhere behind them. Someone gasped, but Elias didn't stop. The billionaire everyone worshipped had just crossed the one line he could never erase. Nia pushed him back, shaking. "You just ruined everything." He smiled, breathless. "Then let it burn." That night, a man with the world at his feet set fire to it for love. And she was the spark. If you've ever wondered how far love can go before it destroys everything, don't go anywhere. The real story begins now. Hours earlier, the night had begun like every other corporate event. The ballroom of the Aurelia Grand glittered like a palace of glass. Nia Carter moved through the crowd with calm precision, her emerald dress catching the light like quiet fire. She had been to hundreds of company events, always invisible, always perfect. Tonight, her job was simple. Make sure Elias Vance smiled, shook hands, and didn't start a war with the board. But something in the air felt heavier. Maybe it was the way his gray eyes followed her across the room, or the way her pulse refused to slow down. She caught her reflection in a mirror, professional, composed, but her eyes betrayed her. For the first time, she wasn't sure who she was serving, her boss or her heart. People whispered his name like a legend. Billionaire, visionary, untouchable. And she was just the assistant who made his world run on time. Still, when their gazes met for a single heartbeat, the distance between power and purpose vanished. She looked away first. He didn't. And deep inside, she knew something irreversible had begun. Sometimes the smallest crack in control is how everything starts to fall apart. Long before the chandeliers and polished marble, Nia's world was smaller, a one-bedroom apartment and the steady hum of her grandmother's voice. "Keep your head high, baby. Trouble finds people who forget who they are." Her parents died when she was 12. The car crash left her with a scar on her wrist and a vow in her heart: never depend on anyone. Her grandmother worked 3 jobs so Nia could study, whispering the same truth each night. Success means staying out of trouble. So Nia built walls. Sharp, clean, unbreakable. She learned to speak softly, move precisely, and never let emotion leak through the cracks. That discipline made her invaluable to Elias Vance. For 4 years, she handled his empire's chaos with surgical grace. Yet the same walls that protected her also kept her alone. No birthdays, no weekend laughter. Only work and silence. Until tonight, when one look from her boss burned through every barrier she had ever built. For the first time, the voice in her head wasn't her grandmother's. It was her own, whispering something dangerous. What if I let go, just once? Elias Vance built Vance Dynamics from a single desk and a borrowed laptop. At 34, he was the face of ambition. Sleek suits, sharp deals, headlines that called him the man who never loses. But behind every victory was the quiet hum of exhaustion. His father had drowned in whiskey, his mother in debt. Elias promised himself he'd never be weak again. Power became his armor, success his language. Every deal, every sleepless night, was another brick in the fortress he called survival. People envied him. No one pitied him. They didn't see the empty apartment, the untouched piano, the stack of birthday cards from employees trying to feel close to a man who didn't let anyone in. Except her. Nia Carter saw details no one else noticed, the way his hands trembled when he signed late at night, the silence that followed his victories. She was his order in the chaos, his calm in the noise, and that terrified him. Because for the first time the fortress didn't feel safe. It felt like a prison, and she was the only one holding the key. The music swelled, violins cutting through the noise of the laughter and champagne. Across the ballroom, Elias caught sight of Nia again. She was laughing with a client, light catching the curve of her neck. Something in him snapped, a quiet, invisible line that had held for years. He moved before he could think. She felt him watching and turned, and for a moment, the world narrowed to two people standing on opposite sides of everything they shouldn't want. He nodded slightly. She froze. It wasn't a command, it was an invitation. Her heart thudded once, hard. She looked away, pretending to check her phone, but the heat of that look lingered. Her fingers trembled as she lifted her glass. Across the room, Elias smiled. Barely there, but enough to send a message she understood too well. This is no longer just work. In the reflection of the chandelier, their eyes met again. The orchestra played louder, the crowd blurred, and the story they had both been avoiding began to write itself. Sometimes it takes only one glance to turn a rule into a risk, and a risk into destiny. The ballroom air had grown too heavy. Nia watched Elias slip through the glass doors and out into the cool night. She hesitated, then followed. The city below glowed like 1,000 tiny secrets. Elias stood at the railing, his hands tight around the metal. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "I forget who I am beneath the CEO mask." The words surprised her. He never let anyone see the cracks. For a moment he looked nothing like the man in the magazines, just a tired soul trying to remember himself. Nia stepped closer. "You're more than your title," she said. "I see it every day." He turned, searching her face for the truth behind those words. The wind tangled her hair, the distance between them shrinking. For once, silence didn't feel awkward. It felt like permission. Inside, the orchestra played another song. Out here, their world was stripped bare. No power, no audience, only truth. It was the first time Elias felt seen. And the first time Nia forgot to hide. He gave a short, unguarded laugh. "You see more than you should." Nia shook her head. "I just notice what others miss. Like the donation you made to rebuild the community center in Bayview. You never put your name on it." Elias blinked, caught off guard. "How did you know about that?" "I'm your assistant," she said softly. "It's my job to know everything." He stared at her, realization spreading across his face. For years he had been surrounded by people chasing his approval. Yet this woman, standing in the silver light, had seen him long before he wanted to be seen. Nia smiled. Small, genuine. "You're a good man, Elias. Don't forget that when the world gets loud." Something in him cracked open. The weight he'd carried for years shifted, just a little. He stepped closer, close enough to feel her warmth. "You shouldn't say things like that," he whispered. "They make me forget where the lines are." She didn't move away, neither did he. The night tilted. The city seemed to fade until there was only them. Elias looked at her as if he was memorizing every breath. "I can't remember why the rules matter anymore," he murmured. Before she could answer, he reached out, one hesitant touch to her cheek. Her pulse jumped. Their eyes met, and the distance vanished. The first kiss was barely a touch, a question neither of them should ask. The second was the answer they both feared. It wasn't sweet. It was surrender. Years of restraint breaking in a single heartbeat. When they pulled apart, both were shaking. "This is wrong," she whispered. "Then let it be wrong," he said, voice rough with want. Inside, laughter echoed from the ballroom, the sound of a world that would never understand. Out here, they had crossed the line, and there was no going back. The night air tasted like guilt and freedom, and neither could tell the difference. Elias didn't speak as they left the hotel, only held the door open to his car. The silence between them was loud, full of questions they were too afraid to ask. His penthouse overlooked the bay, floor-to-ceiling glass, the skyline glowing beneath the stars. Nia stood by the window, her reflection trembling. "We don't have to do this," Elias said behind her. She turned slowly. "Maybe for once. I want to stop being sensible." He crossed the room in 2 steps. The kiss that followed was softer this time, almost tender, as if he was asking for permission he didn't deserve. Clothes fell away. So did the years of restraint. They didn't talk about right or wrong, only about feeling alive. Later, as the city slept, they lay tangled in quiet breaths and half-finished sentences. For the first time in his life, Elias wasn't thinking about tomorrow, and for the first time in hers, Nia didn't care about consequences. The world outside could wait until morning. Dawn slipped through the curtains, turning the room gold and fragile. Elias slept beside her, his face peaceful in a way she had never seen. Nia watched him for a long time, memorizing what she could never keep. The ache in her chest was sharp and clear. What they'd done felt too real to undo, too dangerous to continue. She dressed quietly, each movement measured. On the desk, she found a piece of hotel stationery and wrote, her hand trembling. It was beautiful, but it was wrong. She left the note beside his watch and paused at the door. For a second, she wanted to stay, to see his eyes open and hear him say her name. But she couldn't. The elevator doors closed with a quiet click. By the time the sun climbed over the bay, Nia Carter was gone, taking her heartbeat, her scent, and the lie that what happened could ever be forgotten. Sometimes, love begins the moment you decide to walk away. Monday came too soon. The world outside looked the same, but everything inside Nia had changed. She dressed in her navy suit, crisp lines sharp as armor. The letter of resignation shook slightly in her hand. It felt heavier than paper, like the weight of her conscience. At her mirror, she practiced a steady face. Professional, unattached. The words repeated like a mantra, but her reflection looked hollow. In the elevator, she clutched the envelope tight. The ride felt endless. Every ding reminded her of the moments she was about to erase. When the doors opened to the top floor, her breath caught. His office door was half open. Light spilled across the carpet, warm and gold, mocking her cold resolve. She wasn't ready to see him, not after what she'd written. But there was no turning back now. For 4 years, she'd built her identity around loyalty and restraint. This letter was the only way to reclaim herself. Still, a voice whispered, cruel and soft, "You're not leaving him, Bing. You're running from yourself." She ignored it and walked in. Elias was already there. Same clothes, same haunted eyes. He stood by her desk holding the note she'd left behind. "You left me a note, Nia. After everything, just a note?" Her throat tightened, but she forced calm. "It was the right thing." "The right thing?" He stepped closer. "You think disappearing fixes what happened?" "It prevents it from destroying us." And he laughed, short and bitter. "Destroying us? It destroyed me the second you walked out." Silence stretched between them, heavy and alive. She placed the resignation on his desk. "This is professional. Nothing else matters." "Don't lie to me," he said, voice breaking. "You felt it too." She looked away. "Feeling doesn't make it right." "Then tell me it meant nothing," he said. "Look me in the eye and say it." Her lips parted, but no sound came. The power had shifted. She wasn't the controlled assistant anymore. She was the one holding the knife and the wound. Elias moved around the desk, his voice low but steady. "If the problem is that I'm your boss, then I'll resign." Nia froze. "Don't joke like that." "I'm not." She stepped back, shaking her head. "You built this empire from nothing. You can't just walk away." "Why not?" His tone was sharp, dangerous. "I've spent 10 years building walls around myself. Maybe it's time to tear them down." "Elias, listen to yourself," she said, voice trembling. "You're talking about giving up everything, your company, your legacy, because of one mistake." He smiled, and it wasn't sane. "You call it a mistake. I call it the first honest thing I've done in years." She stared at him, stunned. This wasn't the man who calculated every move, who built empires out of logic. "You're throwing away your life," she whispered. He met her gaze. "Maybe for once. I'm trying to live it." The room felt too small for both their truths. Nia's hands clenched. "You're crazy." "Maybe love makes men crazy," Elias said quietly. "Or maybe it makes them human again." She wanted to argue, to remind him of the world waiting beyond those glass walls, the board, the press, the vultures. But his eyes held something raw, something she'd never seen before. Peace. He stepped closer. All my life I've made decisions that looked right on paper. This is the first one that feels right here. He placed a hand over his chest. Her breath caught. She hated how much she wanted to believe him. "This will destroy us both," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Then at least we go down for something real." The words hung in the air, heavy as confession. She turned away, hiding the tears she couldn't stop. The city skyline glowed behind the glass, glittering and cruel. For once, logic had no place between them, only the wreckage of everything they'd tried to control. A sharp click of heels broke the silence. The door opened. "Morning, Elias." Victoria Hale's voice sliced through the air like ice. Elegant, composed, the COO's eyes flicked from Elias to Nia, taking in the distance, the tension, the truth. Nia's pulse stuttered. "Victoria," Elias said evenly, "you're early." "I tend to arrive before disasters," she replied. Her gaze lingered on Nia's shaking hands, the resignation envelope half hidden on the desk. "Am I interrupting something?" "No," Nia said too quickly. Victoria smiled, a thin, knowing curve. "Of course not." She turned to Elias. "The board's expecting you at 10. Try not to give them more reasons to panic." When she left, the silence returned, heavier than before. Nia swallowed hard. "She knows." Elias nodded. "Then it's already too late." For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes, not of scandal, but of losing her again. And for the first time, Nia realized love wasn't their secret anymore. It was their downfall. The next few days were chaos. Whispers, tension, and eyes that no longer looked away when she passed. Then one morning, Elias called her in. The tension from that morning still hung between them when Elias broke the silence. "We have a client issue in San Diego. You're coming with me." Nia hesitated. Her mind screamed no, but habit answered yes. "Of course." He nodded once. "We leave at 6. Back at her desk, she tried to focus on logistics, flight details, schedules, reports. But every click of her keyboard reminded her that she had no control left. Working beside him again felt like stepping back into a storm she couldn't escape. When evening came, the city was washed in gold light. Elias passed her in the lobby, his expression unreadable. "This is business," he said quietly. She forced a small nod. "Always." But both of them knew that wasn't true. Business had ended the moment they touched. Everything after was something else entirely, something dangerous and unnamed. As the car pulled away toward the airport, Nia watched San Francisco shrink behind her and realized she wasn't just leaving the city. She was leaving the version of herself that used to feel safe. The private jet was quiet except for the low hum of the engines. Nia sat by the window, papers open in her lap, pretending to read. Her eyes moved, but her mind didn't follow. Across from her, Elias studied her without hiding it. The distance between them was measured in more than feet. It was every unspoken word from that morning, every memory neither could forget. She cleared her throat. "We should go over the proposal." "Already did," he said. His tone was calm, too calm. Silence returned, thick and unyielding. She turned to the window, counting clouds, steadying her breath. For years, they had been perfect at control. Now, control was the only thing breaking them. When turbulence jolted the plane, their hands brushed. Neither moved away. For a fleeting second, the touch felt like confession. Then Elias looked away, jaw tight. "We'll handle the meeting, then go home." Home. The word no longer sounded the same. The meeting with the Henderson team dragged on for 6 relentless hours. Contracts, numbers, corrections, every detail sharpened like a blade. Nia spoke with precision, her tone even, her notes flawless. Elias matched her rhythm, both of them performing the dance of professionalism they knew too well. To everyone else in the room, they were the perfect team. Disciplined, brilliant, untouchable. But under the surface, something trembled. Every time his hand brushed hers when passing documents, every glance that lasted a beat too long, the air grew heavier. When the final signature was inked, applause rippled through the conference room. Elias thanked the clients, polite and composed, but his eyes found hers for just a moment. There was pride there, and something darker. Outside, Nia let out a slow breath. "That went well?" He nodded. "We make a good team." Her smile was faint. "We used to." Neither said more. They both knew the act couldn't last forever. They were halfway to the airport when Elias's phone buzzed. He read the message, exhaled, then met her eyes. "Storm grounded all flights." Nia blinked. "You're joking." "Afraid not. Looks like we're staying the night." Her heart sank. The words sounded harmless, but they weren't. One night was enough to break everything they'd rebuilt. Back at the Fairmont Hotel, the rain pounded against the glass like a warning. The receptionist smiled politely, handing over 2 key cards. "Adjacent rooms," Elias said quickly, but his voice wavered. In the elevator, neither spoke. The air crackled with things unsaid. When the doors opened, he turned to her. "Get some rest. We'll head out at first light." "Sure," she replied, too fast. Inside her room, she pressed her back to the door and let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Fate had an awful sense of humor. Out of all the nights to be stranded, it had chosen this one. The storm howled outside, wind slapping the windows in restless bursts. Nia sat on the bed, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back looked strong, but strength no longer felt like safety. Her grandmother's voice echoed through memory. "Don't let strength become fear, baby. It's okay to live a little." Nia closed her eyes. She remembered warm hands, gentle laughter, the smell of coffee and rain. The woman who raised her had believed in love, even after life had taken everything. Maybe being careful isn't the same as being alive, Nia thought. A knock sounded. She froze. One soft knock, then silence. She opened the door. Elias stood there, hair damp from the rain, his expression uncertain. "I didn't mean to disturb you," he said. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay." She hesitated, then stepped aside. For the first time, she didn't think about right or wrong, only about how long she'd been holding her breath and how much she wanted to exhale. The rain eased into a soft drizzle by evening. Elias called her room. "Dinner downstairs, no business talk." His voice was careful, almost shy. They met in a small restaurant overlooking the water. Candles flickered, waves murmured against the shore. For once, they weren't boss and assistant, just 2 tired souls trying to remember how to be human. He told her about Minnesota winters, a father who drank himself silent, a mother who left too soon. He spoke of the emptiness success couldn't fill. She listened, then shared her own ghosts, the fight with her mother before the accident, the guilt that had followed her since. "You can't earn the right to be alive," he said gently. "Your grandmother gave you that gift already." For a moment, the world felt small enough to breathe in. When the check came, neither moved. The silence wasn't awkward, it was warm, fragile, a beginning disguised as an ending. Outside, the waves crashed louder. Something inside both of them answered. They walked along the pier after dinner, shoes in hand, sea breeze curling around them. The moon hung low, silver and watchful. Elias reached for her hand. "I don't want perfect," he said. "I want real." Nia stopped. "Real doesn't last," she whispered. "Then we make it last long enough to matter." His words were simple, but they broke through every wall left standing. She turned toward him, eyes shining with something between fear and hope. The second kiss came slowly, without urgency, soft, steady, inevitable. It wasn't about passion this time. It was about truth. When they finally pulled apart, Nia laughed through tears. "You make everything so complicated." He smiled. "Or maybe you make everything worth it." For the first time, neither of them ran. The storm had trapped them, but maybe that was the point, to stop running long enough to be found. Some promises don't need words. They begin with a kiss and end with courage. It should have been a quiet morning, a memory she could keep in secret, but fate had other plans. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, too bright, too cruel. Elias's phone buzzed nonstop. He answered once and the color drained from his face. Someone leaked photos. Nia sat up, heart hammering. What kind of photos? He showed her the screen. Her leaving his penthouse, their hands touching at the airport, the kiss by the ocean. Headlines screamed across every site, "Billionaire's forbidden affair with his assistant." Nia's stomach twisted. Oh, God. Elias threw the phone aside. "We'll handle it. I'll call legal." "Elias, stop." She could already hear the voices, colleagues whispering, strangers judging. The story they'd built in private was now public property. He paced the room like a caged man. "They want a scandal? I'll fight back." She closed her eyes. "You can't fight everyone." Outside, cameras flashed in the rain. Inside, two people who had finally found peace were watching it dissolve. Love had burned bright, and now the fire was everywhere. Elias's phone rang again, each vibration sharper than the last. "We'll sue them," he said, "for invasion of privacy, defamation, whatever it takes." Nia shook her head. "That makes us look guilty. You can't buy silence this time." "So we just let them drag you through the dirt?" "This isn't about me," she said softly. "It's about your company, your reputation. You built something people believe in. Don't let me be the reason it falls." His jaw tightened. "You think I care about the company right now?" "Yes," she whispered, "because I still care about you." For a moment, neither spoke. Only the distant click of cameras outside filled the room. He moved closer. "You're not walking away again." "I have to." Elias reached for her hand, but she pulled back. "I won't be the headline that ruins you." In the reflection of the window, flashing lights painted them both in shades of guilt and love. Power couldn't protect them now. The truth had already escaped. The elevator ride to the lobby felt endless. Nia held her resignation letter against her chest. Elias followed, silent but refusing to let go of her eyes. "I'm resigning," she said finally. "Not for you, for me." He flinched. "You think walking away will fix this?" "It's the only thing I can control." He took a step closer. "You're scared." "Of losing myself again," she replied, "and I can't afford that." She pressed the letter into his hand. "You taught me something important," she said. "Sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to stop." Elias's voice broke. "Don't do this." "I already have." The elevator doors opened. She stepped out without looking back. Outside, reporters shouted her name. Cameras flashed like lightning. Nia didn't stop walking. For once, the noise didn't reach her. Love had changed her, but self-respect would save her. Sometimes strength isn't staying. It's the courage to leave before you disappear. The moment the elevator doors slid open, chaos exploded. Cameras flashed like lightning. Questions hit like bullets. "Ms. Carter, did you sleep your way to the top?" "Mr. Vance, are there other employees you've been involved with?" Security tried to push the crowd back, but the wall of microphones only grew thicker. Nia kept her head high, each step feeling like walking through fire. Elias stayed close, his hand hovering near hers but not touching. Contact would only make the headlines worse. The air smelled of rain and sweat and judgment. Every flash captured another lie, another twisted version of their truth. Nia's pulse roared in her ears. For years she had built her life around dignity, reputation, self-control, and in a single morning, strangers had ripped it all away. Elias whispered, "Keep walking." She did, but every step cost her another piece of the life she once recognized. By the time they reached the car, her eyes burned, but no tears fell. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Sometimes losing everything isn't loud. It's the sound of silence after the flash. The boardroom was ice and judgment. 12 pairs of eyes stared at her as she stepped in, envelope in hand. "I wanted to deliver this personally," she said, voice steady. "My resignation." Robert Chen leaned back in his chair. "Before you go, Miss Carter, how long have you been manipulating Mr. Vance?" Her breath hitched. "I've never manipulated anyone. Whatever happened was mutual and a mistake." Murmurs rippled through the room. Elias rose suddenly, his voice sharp as thunder. "Enough!" Every head turned. "She's not the scandal," he said, glaring at them. "I am." "Elias," Victoria started, but he cut her off. "You'll not speak to her that way. She's given more to this company than anyone in this room." For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The same man who once ruled this empire now stood defiant, stripped of arrogance, fueled by something stronger than pride. Love. Nia felt tears rise but blinked them back. His defense was the most dangerous gift he could give her. It wasn't professionalism anymore. It was sacrifice. The silence was suffocating. Every executive in the room watched as Elias straightened his suit and spoke, his voice calm but final. "I resign as CEO, effective immediately." Gasps filled the room. Robert Chen slammed his pen down. "You can't just walk away. This company is your life." Elias's jaw tightened. "Exactly. And that's the problem. I spent 10 years chasing money, status, perfection. I forgot what life actually means." Victoria leaned forward, her voice low. "You're throwing everything away for her?" "No," Elias said softly. "I'm throwing it away for myself, for something real." He turned to Nia, and for a moment the chaos around them faded. "Find another to chase money," he told the board. "I'll chase something that finally makes me feel alive." When he walked out, no one tried to stop him. The door closed behind him like a final chapter sealing shut. Nia stood frozen, her resignation still trembling in her hands. He had burned his empire just to prove love wasn't weakness, and somehow that made it stronger than any crown. By dusk, the company felt like a ghost of itself. Nia packed her last box, the echoes of gossip still whispering through the halls. She stepped into the parking lot, wind cold against her skin. Elias was waiting, leaning against her car. "Running again?" he asked gently. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, her voice breaking. "That company was everything to you." "It was," he replied, "but it's not anymore." She shook her head. "You don't have me, Elias." He smiled faintly. "Not yet, but I could, if you'd let me." Her eyes filled. "I'm terrified." He stepped closer, hands trembling. "Me too, but I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you." The air between them softened. For once, fear wasn't the enemy. It was proof they were still alive. She closed her eyes, exhaling the last of her doubt. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay," he repeated, voice quiet but sure. And in that fragile word, everything broken began to heal. 6 months later, time had turned chaos into calm. 6 months later, the sea stretched endlessly before them. Half Moon Bay glowed beneath the sunset. Nia's hair danced in the wind, her laughter carried by the tide. Elias stood beside her. No suit, no titles, just a man with salt on his skin and peace in his eyes. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver ring. "It's simple," he said, "but I've had enough of grand things that mean nothing." Her hands shook as he spoke. "You didn't give up your life," she whispered. "You found it," he smiled. "Maybe love was what I was chasing all along." Tears glimmered on her cheeks as she nodded. "Then you finally caught it." He slipped the ring onto her finger. Around them, the sky turned gold. They had lost everything the world called success, but gained the only thing that mattered. Because true success isn't what we build, it's who we love. Would you choose power or love? Tell us in the comments, power or love.